for joining us and welcome you to the third of the four-part listening session on the Fairland and Briggs Chaney Master Plan. My name is Tom Hucker. I'm the president of the county council. I'm the local council member for Fairland and Briggs Chaney, and I also chair our transportation and environment committee. I've been in office representing this area for about 15 years, state level and the county level. And I really believe, sincerely, we make the best policies and decisions when we hear the most input directly from community members. So your participation tonight is really critical to ensure we are building a community that you want to live with and that is the friendliest and the most sustainable and the healthiest for all of us residents. This session is all about hearing from you, so I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. I'm thrilled to hear that about all the community engagement, the feedback on the plan. At the previous meetings, it's really been exceptional so far, and the planning department staff have been doing a great job with connecting to everybody possible in the Fairland and Briggs Chaney areas. We all know how important mobility and equitable infrastructure are. If you look in the Post today, there's an article about how East County was largely ignored by planners and elected officials for many years. And I've been trying since I've been in office to sort of catch up and to bring amenities like shopping and like retail and like transportation to the East County. I was at the ribbon cutting we held this weekend for the Maydale Nature Center that I worked with the Maydale Friends of Maydale to make happen with the Parks Department over the last 5 years. And in the last year, we've seen how the new Flash bus service has really increased mobility and accessibility for all the residents up and down the US 29 corridor. And we're making improvements on that bus service as well. But if you haven't ridden it, I'd encourage you to do so. You can plug in to a USB port. You can use the Wi-Fi and have a really high quality transit experience all the way down to the Silver Spring Transit Center from Burtonsville. And we're going to be expanding that network to connect it to the Veers Mill Bus Rapid Transit and 355, so you can get around the county with that sort of quality service. But we all need to work together to address the other mobility and accessibility issues that may exist outside of direct bus access to downtown Silver Spring. We need a lot more going on in Fairland and in White Oak. People need local places to shop and to go out to dinner with their families and to take their kids to have fun on the weekends. And that's what sessions like tonight are all about. We've waited far too long for this part of Montgomery County to get our fair share of investment. And so I'm really glad to see that that's changing, but we're not going to have the ability to make the best product unless we hear from all of you. So thanks for spending your time with us tonight. I'd encourage you to stay involved in the process. Grateful to the planning staff for all the hard work you're doing. And please stay in close touch with me about any issues that you have or any ways that I can be helpful on any constituent service issue. My email is tom.hucker@montgomerycountymd.gov. And my cell phone's 240-481-4825, and you can call my office as well. So thanks so much for participating again. I'll pass it over to Malene Jackson, who's our host for the night. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Hucker. We appreciate you for joining us tonight. We know that you are quite a busy man, and we appreciate your support and your leadership in this process. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to jump right in. My name is Malene Jackson. I am the co-lead for the Fairland and Briggs Chaney Master Plan, and I am joined in this responsibility with my fellow co-lead, Philip Estes. He is our producer, our director, our master extraordinaire behind the scenes, and I want to thank him in advance for helping us to get through this evening smoothly. I am joined not only with Philip, but with the army of folks behind us. It's a village, really, and it takes quite an effort to bring this event to you. So I want to acknowledge everyone, but I also will wait until the end to mention names so that we can just get right into this. Next slide, please. I have my folks here directing the presentation behind the scenes. So I want to give a special shout out to my co-host for this evening, Roberto Duke. He will be on in a second. but I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through the agenda for this evening. If you haven't joined us for any of the other sessions, this is the third of 4 sessions, so we're almost to the end. This is our last session in the evening. The next session will actually be during work hours in the morning from about 10 o'clock to 11:30, and it'll be about food. So we hope that you can join us. I'll remind you again at the end of this evening. But for tonight, we had our introduction, Story Tapestries. We're working with them very closely. This is the first time that we have partnered with them in this capacity, and they have been with us for the entire series. And so we are excited to have them for this part in this presentation, in this session tonight. And the topic for tonight, of course, is all about mobility and equitable infrastructure, which is a very important topic for this plan in particular. As you can see, the image to the right is a map, and highlighted in the black, outlined in black, is the master planning area. Thank you very much, Roberta, for pointing that out. We are a smaller version of the 1997 plan here, folks. We are really trying to narrow the focus to US 29, and specifically to highlight the BRT and the transit and the way that people are using this corridor to move not only on US 29 from the north to the south and the south to the north, but there's also Route 200, excuse me, which is also referred to as the ICC, which connects people from west and eastern directions. So you can also see that the master plan boundary abuts Prince George's County, and Prince George's County, as our sister agency, joined us for the first conversation around parks and recreation and places to play. So they continue to stay involved with this process, and we continue to want them to stay involved in this process. We will have next up will be a quick polling technique that we've been using for all of our sessions so far, and an icebreaker. Can we go back to the other slide? Sorry, Roberto. Okay. After the icebreaker, we'll break out into smaller groups, depending on how many people join us tonight. If we have a small group, we'll stay right here. We do have Spanish translation happening behind the scenes. I just want you to know that, so that you know that we are trying our best to be very inclusive in this virtual experience. After the smaller breakout sessions, we'll regroup and do a debrief. But during the breakout sessions, I want to remind you that we are going to be using features like the drawing booklets that you should have received with the link to this meeting, and what we call a Jamboard. No worries, we're not having you work the Jamboard. We're going to work the Jamboard, and we're going to take notes as you're talking to us. It's just a graphic way that we can show you that we're listening to what you're saying. And depending on the night, depending on how many people we have, I think we have 32 people in the room with our posse of folks, our village that's helping to coordinate this event. So right now we're up to 32, but we hope to get up to about 41 or 44 people as they drop in. After the debrief, we'll wrap up and we'll share. We'll try to share our thoughts, our final thoughts, in a poem or a very artistic approach, a very artistic way. And so I want to also acknowledge the presence and the significance of having Story Tapestries here with us today. Why partner with Story Tapestries? Because they are here. If you don't know about Story Tapestries, I highly recommend that you look them up. They are here with us to help us facilitate a dialogue that is not only artistic and creative, but it inspires us and it empowers us to think more creatively, and to it's an education experience for us all, but we are trying to find ways to not only get this conversation off in the right direction, but to inspire you to continue this dialogue and to think of things not only in a conversation mode, but we want to encourage you to use those drawing books that we've put together, those composition books, to communicate to us. If you do not complete it tonight, no worries. You can email me your completed images. But if you feel the need and you are up to par with this technology that we have here, feel free to copy and paste your image into the chat. We will be using the chat this evening. Thank you very much, Ariana, for putting the link to Story Tapestries in the chat. Folks, I highly, highly recommend that you check them out. It is a great experience that we're trying to have right now. So this only gives you just a small glimpse of what they're capable of. So stay tuned. So, and for the sake of time, I just also want to remind you that the purpose of this evening is to not only highlight the Fairland and Briggs Chaney Master Plan, but to hear from you about what you want, what you need, what you hope for the future. We will collect your feedback and find ways to apply that feedback, that collected feedback, into the master planning process. So that being said, next slide. We have been out in the community, we've been listening to people so far, and some of the things that we've heard, just really quickly, is that the cost of living is not getting any cheaper, that Fairland and Briggs Chaney is a great place to live. It is regionally focused, like it has great proximity to Howard County and Prince George's County and downtown Silver Spring, as well as other parts of Montgomery County. However, the suburban character can be somewhat challenging when it comes to folks that are not driving. So we want to address mobility, and by improving mobility, we hope to increase access to job opportunities and create a competitive office and retail environment. As well as with equitable infrastructure. That means that if we're providing equitable infrastructure, then we are improving the quality of life for everyone. And not only do we want to balance the need for growth with environmental issues, environmental justice issues, we want to make sure that we are aware and conscious of unintended consequences that may have been caused in the past, but that we're making strides to improve our natural environment. Next slide. So I'm going to take a quick break because we are trying to remember this historical moment in time, and want to encourage you to turn your cameras on for just a second if you feel comfortable to do so. We would like to invite a photo, so please, thank you, Dan. Thank you for joining us again, Dan, for the third time. You've been with us the entire time, so I just want to acknowledge your presence in the room. And anyone else who is free, please turn on your cameras for just a quick second. We just want to get a quick photo of everyone who's here in acknowledgement of this moment in time. Tell me when the photo has been taken. Everyone smile. All right, we're good to go. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle is with Story Tapestry. She's taking the photos, and we're going to only use the photos for our collection, but I will now, we have, I'm going to turn it over to Story Tapestries to work their magic in getting us started here. Michelle, Ariana, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, I am. Hey, everybody. My name is Michelle Faulkner Forson, and I am the Partnerships and Innovations Director with Story Tapestries. And before we get started, we're going to take a quick poll just so we can see who's in the room and to get a little information about who we're talking to today. So I'll just read through the questions real quick. Are you a resident of the Fairland and Briggs Chaney community is the first question. Do you work or shop in Fairland and Briggs Chaney? It's the second question. Do you use public transportation? What is your age? Don't be shy, no judgment. Do you speak more than one language? I wish I did, I don't. And lastly, what is your race/ethnicity? All right, folks, we're gonna take a couple seconds to get that information in. And as soon as that happens, we will be on our way to Icebreaker land.
Just a few more.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. We're gonna end the poll.
All right. Okay. Well, now that we're done with the poll, it's time for the icebreaker. Oh, and here's some of the results. Here are the results. So if you want to check those out, now you know who's in the room.
Nice. Fabulous. So hi, I'm Ariana Ross. I'm the CEO of Story Tapestries. We are an arts service organization, which means we go around partnering with schools, communities, libraries to serve the community and support the community. So I'm going to frame it in gallery view so I can see all of your fabulous faces and names. We're going to be utilizing the chat quite a bit, but if you're someone who does not like the chat and you want to yell out your answer, go ahead and you can, you can unmute and you can share your answer that way verbally. We are framing it with a transportation view lens. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is, when you are in transit, be it by your feet, in a car, in metro, in a bus, however you transit, however you get from one locale to the next, what color do you think of? Now, this could be literal, like yellow bus, school bus, or it could be more figurative. Michelle, I'm going to use your example because today I was sitting in traffic. So immediately sort of dark red frustration came over me. Michelle, what color would you be thinking of when you are sort of in space?
So I don't use public transportation, but when I did, there was a stench of urine most of the time. So I would say yellow.
Ooh. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So everybody can please pop into the chat. What is the color that you think of? Be as strong and descriptive as you can be. Have you noticed that Michelle gave sort of a justification? I gave you like my frustration was a dark red. I see green for Sheila, green for Patrick, blue for Upnet, boring blue. Nice.
Boring blue. I love that.
Nice, boring blue. Excellent, dark brown.
I'm
Green,
scared to ask.
gray, the color of asphalt. Gray, blue. Excellent. Any other ones? Closing it in 5. Of course, you can always add your color later on. Now I want you to think, we're going to kind of complete a couple of sentences. And this is where you can complete it by writing in the chat. You can complete it by writing down. This is where you can start to utilize that book that we gave you. If you printed it out, draw on it, color on it, visualize it. I am a verbal person and I'm a writer. So my reaction to things is I'm going to be writing my response to something, but someone else might be a visual. So you might be like, Ariana, my brain does not think in words. My brain thinks in doodles. So feel free to put your words in the chat or to hold up a doodle, whichever works to you. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. So you're going to either answer my question with words or with a doodle. Okay. And a doodle is really a quick, fast drawing. Does not have to be something fantastically gorgeous. If you are a stick figure person like me, that is what you are going to draw. Like Michelle is nodding her head. Any other stick figure people in the room? It is critical. All right, so I want the sentence to finish is I see. Now, it could be figurative or it could be literal. So it could be like, I see the wash of trees and farmland passing by me. I currently live in Poolsville. We have no transportation. It is countryside. Michelle, can you finish the I see in either a figurative or a literal sense?
I see many boxes and bags because I'm moving. So I'm gonna go literal.
And it can be literally within your own space or it can be outside. So I see frustrated commuters as they sit in the bus or wait by the bus stop for the bus that is always late. Sorry, my transportation folks, but it's the truth. All right. So ready? I see brake lights on US 29, especially in White Oak where it's not needed. Nice. If you can, add your thoughts. Judgment.
There's a unnecessary lane drop on southbound US 29 where we lose a lane and cause, without COVID at least, extremely long backups that shouldn't be there. It would be relatively easy to fix.
Thank you, and thank you for that explanation of your sentence. I see.
Yes, thank you.
That's critical. So if you have an explanation, this is where we begin to use that to listen and hear. I see stop signs and lots of traffic, yellow lights. I see new sleepy willow trees on the street that leads to my new home off Briggs Chaney. It's not a pretty entrance, but the homes in the development are quite nice. Ooh, but it makes me think about what can we do to make that entrance prettier. I see black screen without people's faces. Ooh. Poetic.
I also see lots of green along the intercounty connector, which has served me exceedingly well since it opened.
Nice. I see large highways separating the community. I see a diverse world coexist. I see beautification day in our neighborhood. Fantabulous. All right, we have one more sentence. One more. I run, I walk, I drive, I wait. I run, I walk, I drive, I wait. Obviously, you don't need to answer all four, but pick one of them. I run, I walk, I drive, I wait. Where are you headed? Where are you going? What are you waiting for? I grew up taking the bus. I see the Nile, US 29 separating us. I'm going to put in the chat. So for those of you that are visual, I see. So I run, I walk, I drive, I wait. I wait for the new BRT flash bus. I drive everywhere in Silver Spring and the remainder of the DMV. I wait for East County to be the perfect place for me to start my family. In poetry, we snap. I do a lot of snapping. It doesn't matter whether it's poetry or not. It's like my natural habit. I did it with a bunch of business leaders today. They were like, what is she doing? All right. Anyone else? I run, I walk, I drive, I wait. I walk around my community without meeting traffic. Mainly Maryland is where I spend my time: grocery, hair, nail salon, work, family, and friends visits. Fantastic. If you are not someone who's going to verbalize and you want to quick sketch it and then take a picture and send it to Marlene. Marlene, do they have your email address?
You absolutely do have my email address, and I'll put it in the chat, but it should be also on your composition book that you got. It should be on the website, the Fairland and Briggs Chaney website, but I'm also going to type it here in the chat. So feel free to send me your doodles, send me your drawings from the workbook or the composition book that we've sent. This is my email address, Moline, molline.jackson@montgomeryplanning.org.
If there's any, Marlene, I just realized that, you know, English is my comfortable language, but if there's anyone in the Spanish space that wants to type in Spanish in the chat,
Feel free.
or speak and have the interpreters add their voice to our voice, please do. Feel free. Don't feel that language should not hamper you from communicating at all. I speak Portuguese, not Spanish, but I can read it. So, all right.
Thank you, Ariana. Thank you, Michelle, for the icebreaker. I am going to bring the slide presentation back. We want to also spend some time talking about the pedestrian experience. And I have here with me my co-host, Roberto. Right after he speaks, we're going to jump right into the breakout session. So I want to encourage you guys to be thinking about those things, thinking about how we can make improvements to not only the BRT stops, but I loved the phrase about I wait for East County to be the perfect place. So keep thinking around that, because we're going to get to the breakout sessions in a few minutes. Roberto, why don't you quickly go through your slides about
Sure.
pedestrian experience and urban design?
Sure. My name is Roberto Duke, and I'm with Up County. And I want to quickly start by, before I start and we look at this brief video from the walkout audit that we conducted on Briggs Chaney on the afternoon of October 6th, here are some things I want you to consider. How is mobility in the Fairland and Briggs Chaney area? Is it pedestrian and or bike friendly or more auto-centric? Is public transportation easily accessible? And what is your comfort level with different modes of transportation? And do different modes of transportation conflict with each other? And what can be done to improve and enhance transportation in the area? And also, I just want to point out, we're also conducting a pedestrian master plan. And one of the important things that the plan points out is that walking and or rolling is the most essential mode of transportation. And everyone is a pedestrian at some point during the day. And improving the safety and comfort of pedestrians in Montgomery County is a key element of this transportation planning effort. So let me now go to the video. It's about a minute video, a little bit over a minute, and then I'll start my presentation up again, and hopefully you can hear this. Let me go.
Overall, it was a good experience, but I must say that as a wheelchair user, I have concerns for other wheelchair users because the curb cuts were very narrow, and some of the curb cuts also had very steep slopes. And so when you go up and down them, it makes you feel like you're tilting at an angle. And if you're not as experienced a motorized chair driver like myself and Shannon, it could be very dangerous for someone.
A lot of the crosswalks, you have to push a button before you can get the signal, and sometimes you get there right before or right after you get the chance to push the buttons. There are also a lot of connectivity issues with sidewalks. Some of the sidewalks are too narrow. They might have a utility pole in the middle of them, which makes it very difficult. I'm a parent. I sometimes have a stroller.
It's not good for handicapped individuals or seniors to walk. Even young people had to walk in the street because at one point there between Rody Road and Castle Boulevard, the trees were so overgrown, I saw a young man walking in the street. And that's a dangerous area because you have cars coming from 200 and they come around that curve doing 50 and 60 miles an hour. They don't care about the speed limit, you know? And it's a blind spot there. They need a traffic light there. Something needs to be done.
Sorry. And let me bring up the, okay. So the next sections, I just want to show you some slides of some of the issues that make walking, rolling, or biking difficult in any community. And one of the things here, are you comfortable walking along sidewalks that are right against traffic? And if not, if you are not, what would make you feel more comfortable? Just some brief barriers that you find along your sidewalks and side paths. The image on the left shows a slight elevation, so you see slight elevation in some of the sidewalk here. So it can cause a tripping hazard. And I know that on many occasions I've taken a tumble when I haven't paid close attention. My wife will say I'm very clumsy. And then on the slides on the right, you see that there are a number of objects that are right in the middle of the sidewalk. You have a utility pole just right as you're coming up a handicap ramp here. And then you have bollards that are right in the middle of the ramps. So you have a lot of objects sometimes that make it difficult to walk or roll in along the streets, along the sidewalks, I'm sorry. And then on the image on the left, you know, one of the things here, okay, we do have a larger side path here, so an area that's both for biking and for walking and rolling, but it's not the best during the summer. There's no area for shades, and it's kind of a really unhealthy situation. You know, when you're walking along these areas, usually you're just trying to find going during a hot summer day, you're trying to go from shade to shade, shaded area to shaded area. So what can be done to improve this area? And the tree canopy can help to reduce the heat island effect. It can also help with reducing the pavement maintenance and help to also improve water quality. On the right here, we have a thing called a free right, which can cause conflicts between pedestrians and drivers. And you see this in many places, and it kind of makes motorists feel that sometimes they have the right of way so that they can speed around the corner. And sometimes it causes those conflicts as pedestrians are trying to cross to the refuge area right here. So what can be done to improve that? I mean, in many cases, it's making a more traditional intersection where you don't have this free right. And finally, I just wanted to point out, this is another area just that's similar in many respects to the area that we looked at along Briggs Chaney Road. This is up on Maryland 108 up in Olney. It's a 4-lane road and it has left turn, right turn lanes, as you can see here. And the speed limit is, I think, 30 miles per hour, and the buildings are set back from the road, and there's parking lots in front. But there are a few things that have been done here, design elements, that have helped to make it a little bit more conducive for walking. As you can see, there are shaded areas with shade trees, so it makes walking just a little bit better during the summer months. So you're going from shaded area to shaded area. There's a dedicated crosswalk. There's a refuge area right here so that if you get caught during the light cycle, you have an area for refuge with raised curbing. Also, you see right here a bus shelter that can provide shelter from the elements during inclement weather. And as we're focused on, this is just a brief presentation of ideas that is primarily focused on the pedestrians, but I want you to consider how do you get from point A to point B, and what are your commuting patterns? Are you just commuting, or do you like to just go out to walk or bike? And what other modes of transportation do you use? And would you use other transportation modes if there were no obstacles in the way? So these are just some of the things that I'd like folks to consider as we go into our breakout rooms. And let me give you to the next slide here.
Thank you so much, Roberto. And he is absolutely correct. I just want to remind you of where we are in this process. We started this plan about 8 months ago, and this is a great time to get involved. So we are still in the listening phase, and we're gradually moving in the visioning stage. And we have about 27 people in the room, so we are going to divide you up into 2 breakout sessions, just 2. Many times at the sessions before, we've divided you up into 4 breakout sessions, I believe. For tonight, we have 2 breakout sessions. Next slide, I just want to remind people, if you haven't had a chance to attend one of these, just some tips on what to look out for. In Zoom, we encourage you to turn on your camera while you're in your breakout session so that you can meet your friends and colleagues and make new friends and colleagues if you haven't already. And mute yourself while you're not talking, but feel free to contribute both either by speaking and sharing your voice with us, or feel free to use the chat. So I think we are just about ready. I want to also let you know that we have about 30 minutes scheduled for the breakout sessions. So I think Melissa is here. I want to just acknowledge your presence in the room. I want to make sure that we're listening to you and listening to people in general, but she was brave enough to say, we need more time to talk. So we are trying to give you that time. And I think we're ready to go. Philip, are we ready to go for our breakout sessions?
Yes, Molly. Yes, Molly, we are ready to go whenever you're
All
ready.
right. So when you get your request to join the room, go ahead and join that room. I think one of the rooms is going to stay here in the main space. I don't know, or maybe not. All right. So go ahead and join your breakout.
That sounds delicious.
I ate a bowl of ice cream with chocolate syrup after all this.
Yeah.
Sorry for cutting off the last person.
It sounds like the conversations were going really great. And I did hear, I went into both of the breakout sessions. I want to welcome you back into the main space here. And I think Don was the facilitator for room 2, right? And Lynn was the facilitator for room 3. And I want to also mention that Todd and Lisa, even though they didn't maybe tell you, they were working the jam boards in either one of those rooms. So I want to acknowledge them and say thank you so much for your support. I'm going to turn it over to Ariana right now to kind of facilitate this portion of which is the debrief, so that we can get into the weeds. And I'm going to ask that the jam board be brought up so that we can kind of go over some of the comments that we heard tonight. Ariana?
Do you want me to share my screen, or is it?
No worries. I think Todd, if you don't mind sharing your screen, we will work off of Todd's shared screen.
Beautiful. So I think the best way is we'll start with slide 1. So if we
But you go ahead and get.
Did you want me to, Moline?
I'm sorry, what did you say? You broke up for a second.
I was saying Todd is sharing. So I was going to say is we'll start with slide 1. So if we can back ourselves all the way up to slide 1 or page 1, however you want to. But we can begin with the pink group.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting a message. I want to ask the note takers to be called on because they're the ones who have the notes on the Jamboard. So we have Jesus and Rachel and Catherine, but I think it's just Jesus and Rachel that we're going to be calling on. Sorry about that. So
no problem. So for the mobility and equitable infrastructure, I'm just going to read the questions. What are your transportation challenges? What forms of transportation do you use and why? What do you like or not like about public transportation? So for the pink side, I believe is that Rachel or is that Jesus? Whoever wrote the notes for the pink side, if you could share with us, just touch base on a couple of those. You're not going to necessarily be able to read all of them, but select them and then share a sort of a summary.
This is Todd. I think I wrote the pink ones that are written up here. Most people, we had two residents in our area, in our group, and both of them predominantly drive. There was a sentiment that some of the buses may not run to exactly the places that would be useful for them, and that there's not good transit going out of the county. There is also a significant discussion about how it's incredibly hard to cross US 29. And part of that is because we as a county have not built the bridges, the intersections over 29 that were called for in the prior plan. And that would have made it easier for pedestrians to cross from one side to another.
Is there any specific pink sort of Jamboard slips you want to share out and read, or do you want to toss it over to your blue crew?
I'll read the one that was, there are many bridges over the highway that was supposed to be built per the old plan, and they've never been built. That's a problem. Sort of summarize the sentiment there.
If I might add, if I could jump in there, that the one place where one was built is at Briggs Chaney, and that even though that area is not perfect for bikes and pedestrians, there was a near infinite improvement in the environment for walking and biking getting across 29 when that bridge was constructed. It was a messy project. It took a while. The state they ran into some issues because we were right on the fall line and they had groundwater problems, among other things. If I recall right, it's been a few years now. But that bridge as it is a huge improvement for bikes, people that walk and ride bikes to get across 29, where that was a very pedestrian and bike hostile place before.
Thank you.
We also have another community member in our group who is not able to talk. She typed in the chat share that she stopped using public transit because some safety concern.
And I think that's very critical. Thank you. For the blue group, is that Rachel? Fabulous. Thank you, Rachel. You can summarize, select, and call out some of the most thoughtful comments.
So we had four actually in our group, community members who mostly did not use public transit anymore. A couple did, but the public transit took too long. There weren't enough buses, on regular schedules. There were like peak times, but they found that it took a lot longer to use the public transit rather than just getting in their cars. So, better schedules for the buses were some things that were talked about. The buses don't come often enough. They did like the direct bus route to Silver Spring. But, they really felt like they had to drive to everything.
Thank you. We want to move to number 2. Pink, do you want to start?
We always like to start. Biking was not a significant form of transportation that's used in part because a number of the bike trails don't really connect in the area, and I'd say I'd call out, the comment about the nicest bike trail in the region is the I-66 trail. It has lots of shades, gentle curves, bridges over the busy streets. It's a good example what trails should be, and it would be nice if the ICC trail looked like that.
Beautiful. The blue, clearly you had a combination of different people. And I realize I didn't read the questions, but do you feel comfortable, safe bicycling? Why or why not? What services or amenities are needed within biking or walking distance? And what is needed to improve the pedestrian or bicycling experience? Rachel, take it away.
Thanks. So our group did not do a lot of bicycle riding either, but everyone did walk. One of our residents walks every single day for exercise. Another resident mother walks every single day, and she walks with her on Sundays. So they do walk. They feel comfortable walking within their neighborhood. They would like more places to actually walk to, maybe more retail or more green or something other than just to get out and move and exercise. They felt like, and these were some really great ideas, that if there were something interesting to look at along the trails or sidewalks as they're walking, for instance, signs that talk about the history, or there was talk about, putting art on the ground. There was talk about using something called a mandala, which is sort of like a meditation space. They really felt like there would be that would be an added benefit to just the plain old boring walking trails.
Beautiful. Excellent. Do we want to move to the third slide or third page? So mobility and equitable infrastructure, in your words, what transportation problems should we be trying to solve? What does successful transportation system look like to you, and what else should we know? And if I know that there was not as many little sticky notes on this one as there are another one, so if for some reason as they're reading these out, that something else sticks in their brain, Moline, is it okay for them to put it in the chat? Because sometimes, like, by the time you get to the third page, you're like,
It absolutely is. It absolutely is okay for them to, if you want to just call it out, if you want to speak out loud, I think Todd can add it to the Jamboard. We can do it that way as well.
Excellent. So we'll start with Todd and Rachel, whoever feels like going first. And then Rachel, since you're unmuted, do you want to start with the blue side?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, our residents felt like the transportation problems need to be a combination of efforts to solve things. Combination of more buses that run regularly, a combination of interconnected trails and sidewalks, nice sidewalks. So, it needs to be a combination and not just focus on one. One of the things that was asked was, what comes first? Is it the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, or is it, more let's say retail or businesses or housing, does that come first? And that was a really good question. So how to take this plan and do the combination of things, what comes first, what comes second, do certain things come at the same time? That was something we really want to delve more into when we're looking into this plan.
I'll pick up from there. I'd say our group felt that particularly post-COVID, the traffic hasn't been as bad. You know, there's some pinch points in the system, but that on most days it's run okay.
And is there anything that anyone wants to add that they didn't feel like they got to say to these 3 slides? Please feel free to put it in the chat or shout it out. Because sometimes the most beautiful things are spoken sort of in improvisational space. Marlene is there. I was looking through. I didn't see that there was sort of much on a slide 4, but is there? There was the map. Do we want to go to the Jamboard for? That was the map. There wasn't questions on it.
No questions on the map. That was just for reference.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage you, if you have anything, I mean, it doesn't even have to be around these particular questions. If there's anything that you didn't get a chance to say during this session, now would be a good time to just open up the floor for comments in general. I heard a lot of good points about making the experience better. And the fact that Route 29 is a really difficult, challenging system in place that keeps a lot of people from navigating across it. But I want to also touch on the fact that most of the people in the room, if I'm not mistaken, have said that they prefer to drive.
I wouldn't say prefer, you must drive.
Thank you, Dan. Tell me a little bit about that again, from your perspective.
Well, you really can't use public transportation, walking or biking to get where you want to go. You can walk just for kind of more exercise or something close by, but not any distance. And back to the question about when do things get done, I think when development occurs, the infrastructure that would support that development needs to occur at the same time. And maybe the way to do that is the local area transportation improvement program that's in the White Oak master plan area. We use that in this master plan area as well.
And that should have happened when we had the big growth in the 1980s, and the 81 plan totally failed us on that. And that's why we don't have it. And you're familiar with that plan and how bad it was. And
yeah, we're just now getting the infrastructure. The BRT was promised us 40 years ago, and we're just now starting to get it. So, you know, we got all the development in the next decade in the 80s, but none of the infrastructure has come.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I mentioned in different group is that getting it for people in Fairland, getting across US 29, if you don't have an interchange, is like swimming on the Nile. Very difficult and it's hazardous. And these are things that are in the 97 plan, good for that reason as much as anything, and yet they haven't happened. And that would.
I was going back to the 81 plan, so.
I mean, yeah, I understand that. I got you on
that. But rather than those interchanges, they could do pedestrian overpasses.
Absolutely not. I strongly disagree with that, because those will make people feel unsafe. They'll be very isolated up there in those. You have to have something. You have to have something like a Briggs Chaney. That's the prototype in my mind, which gets a lot more bike and pedestrian traffic since that was built. I live right around the corner from it, so I do observe it frequently.
And that's an interesting perspective. I also want to ask others in the room, how are you guys feeling of the bridge at Briggs Chaney Road? Are you familiar with it? How's your experience with it? I think Lauren, who happens to be our transportation planner, I think we were getting into conversations about that even with our pedestrian audit. Does anyone else have any thoughts about that particular intersection of US 29 and Briggs Chaney Road?
And as a point of reference, we're talking about like right outside of Briggs Chaney Marketplace.
Right.
Yes.
So I think I'm curious about Patrick's comment, because that kind of overpass, I think, even exists on Georgia Avenue in Silver Spring. That walking, like the Forest Glen, there's something kind of bridge there, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a pedestrian bridge.
And so you're opposed to something like that. And I'd love to know more.
People feel unsafe. People, as bizarre as it sounds, I think people feel safer when they're close to, but not mixing it up with car traffic, and they feel vulnerable. I know that the other place where there's a long pedestrian bridge, and I don't know if it has these issues, if I think it might, is up in Columbia over 29. There's a very long pedestrian bridge in east-west over 29 there. I don't see too many people using that, but where I see the most people using bike and pedestrian trails is where they are close to, but not in, automotive traffic. I think because the automotive traffic brings eyes and people riding by, whereas if you're in a bike or a pedestrian only bridge, I think there's vulnerability, especially for women by themselves. I don't think most would-be criminals necessarily want to mess with me, but they might. I think women are a different story.
I think with lighting, I don't know. I think it may be a personal choice, but I think it would be welcome, because you cannot get across 29.
No, you're right.
Any other way, like, except by car right now.
Oh, at Briggs Chaney you can, but you're right. At Greencastle and at Fairland, at Musgrove, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I think the other factor you got to take into account is cost. I don't see the state ever coming up with the money to do the other interchanges. You're talking $500 million, 500.
Have you asked them, Dan?
Excuse me?
Have you asked them?
Yes.
Okay.
This has been an ongoing topic. Pat, this has been going on for decades, and they're having almost a hard time to come up with money to fill potholes. So they're not going to come up with money.
They had plenty of money to build a purple line, didn't they? Comes out of the same pot of money.
I'm going to jump in here real quick, guys, because there is a time check. It is now 7:58. I do want to be conscious of everyone's time here. I will say that we have talked about pedestrian bridges, candidly. I live in Prince George's County, and I have used the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, which is the bridge that Dan is referring to. It is a very expensive bridge, but it goes across a major highway. But I will second some of the thoughts that Melissa had and shared in the breakout room about the value that lighting and signage and, of course, trees and seating add to that type of an experience. I think it's very different from the one that is over Georgia Avenue, which is a pedestrian bridge. It's a challenge, though. I want to jump back in and ask Roberto to put up the very last slide, because I want to make sure that folks know how to get in touch with us well after this conversation. I want to, Roberto, if you don't mind putting up the last slide. I will also mention again that I'm not the only person here doing this session. We have most of our master planning team here with us, helping us to host this event right here. Of course, there's Philip and myself, who are the co-leads. And here's our email address if you would like to reach out to us directly. But then there's Lauren Campbell. There's Lisa, Rachel. Lisa is our housing person. Rachel is our parks person. Jesus, She works with schools and provides a lot of data around schools and public schools and countywide, but she's focused on the Fairland and Briggs Chaney plan. I want to also acknowledge, I hope Lynn, of course, who is was facilitating the breakout session. She's been interning with us, and we could not do the research that we're doing. We have collected a lot of data, so she's been data mining a lot of the research for us. I want you to stay connected with us, stay involved with this process. And if you have, oh, and Roberto, who's also hosting this conversation with me, who hosted tonight. Roberto is our urban designer on the team. I want to acknowledge him too. Please forgive me, Roberto. But it is now 8:01. And Don, how could I forget Don? Don is the supervisor for Up County. I want to acknowledge your presence as well. And Todd, who is doing our economic development, or really the research component of our, he will be leaving us, but we will miss him. So thank you so much, everyone who has helped to host this event. But I want to encourage you to stay in touch with the process and join us for the very last session, which will be on food to thrive. It has been a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege. Thank you so much for giving your time tonight. And it is now 8:01. So enjoy. Hopefully you go have a good dinner, and I'll see you at the next session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
ask the